Well, hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome back. So glad that you're here. I have fun with that song. All right. So cholesterol and carbohydrates, two of the essential parts of our diet. But most people need help understanding what they are and why they're crucial. In this video, I break down the basics of cholesterol and carbohydrates so that you'll be better able to understand how to stay healthy. Welcome tonight. I'm glad that you're here. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwayne Wood. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I empower, I encourage, I educate you on how to take charge of your health, take charge of your life, avoid complications, and create the life you've always wanted, go into the next level. That's what we do here on the channel. If you're new as well, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to get you a hand clap and also get you some music. If you have questions as we go throughout the night, go ahead and put those in the chat and also add a Q and a colon in front of it so that we know that those are questions that we'll need to get to. Just excited, y'all. Just glad to be here. Can you believe it? That's right. We are in the second month of the year already, in the month of October. October is special for me because that's right. I celebrated a birthday during this month and just am happy just to be here, y'all. 2022 has been an amazing year. 2023, I'm expecting it to be just the same. This is Black History Month. And you see, I've got my Oakwood University sweatshirt. I'm repping my school. I went to Oakwood University. Well, it was college at the time, but went to Oakwood University and just am so glad that I am able to be standing on the shoulders of people who came before me. There are physicians who did groundbreaking work so that all of us, not just African Americans, can be where we are. Many people around the world really are benefiting from the things that they did. But I'm happy that I'm able to represent the African American community. I went to an African American, an HBCU, as we call it, and just so glad. So shout out to you, Oakwood University. Shout out to all the faculty and staff and everyone who has been there in the past, those who are here, those who will come in the future. Thank you for all that you do. And I could not be where I am without all the work that you have done and all the work that you continue to do. And if I start calling names, I'm going to get in trouble. So I'm not even going to go do that. But I've got some special people that are over there. And if you went to an HBCU, I want you to go ahead and just rep your school, okay? And if you did go to HBCU, put yes in the comments. So Black History Month, right? So repping Oakwood. This is also Heart Awareness Month, and we've been doing the last the last show we did was on heart disease, and tonight we're going to spend some time talking a little bit about some of the things that are involved in heart disease. But tomorrow is something else related to hearts, right? What is it? It's called Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Hopefully you've got some honey for your honey. That's right. I know I got a crazy sense of humor. And make sure that you are, first of all, spending some time making sure that you are loving on yourself, making sure that you are taking care of those folks who are around you. So to my wife, happy pre-Valentine's Day, honey. I love you. And yeah, we're going to celebrate. We got some stuff that I got for her starting tonight, right? So so great. All right. So Valentine's Day tomorrow. And I want to do some shout outs to some people who have been special on the channel, people who have been engaging with us on the channel. Jeff Gilmore, first of all, Jeff went out and Jeff found some of our, we do the amazing question wheel, and Jeff went out and he typed in hashtag I was there. And on a couple of the videos. So Jeff, thank you for doing that. I want to shout out Linda Masco, who shared one of our posts on Facebook. I want to shout out Carlton Forbes, who watched our video, our special edition video and made some comments. Animal Paradise, Janet, thank you for coming through. Janet watched it, make some comments. Cheryl also, Cheryl Wolf, who has a channel also, and both Janet and Cheryl were on this show when we did our New Year's special. Leola Marks, who went out and also watched our show, our special edition, and commented and gave me a suggestion of something I could do. And Leola is special, guys, because Leola is my cousin. So, hey, cuz. Dan Hill, who watched one of our shows and sent us a message. Dan, I hope everything went well, and thank you for sharing with us. Let us know how things are going. Discord coach, Keely, thank you for coming through. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for engaging. I really appreciate that. We've got Missy Hesser. And Missy, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Let me know if I am not. Thank you for coming through. Missy asked a question, and Missy has been engaging with us. So thank you for that. Grace, thank you for coming through. Florence, thank you for coming through. TT, who was here last week, thank you for coming through as well and hanging out with us on the show live. So those are all the folks who've been on Facebook, and then on our YouTube channel. Then on our Facebook, we have Rebecca Snooty, who made a comment on one of the posts, and she said she did something in response to one of the shows that we did. Annie Sellers, Annie, thank you always. Annie is just, if I can have a cheerleader, I think I have somebody who is always positive. Annie is one of them. So Annie, thank you so much. And GWRS, yo, thank you for forwarding one of our posts that we did there. And then Missy also hung out with us or engaged with us on Facebook. So thank you for all of you who do that. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your encouragement. And we're going to have this little segment where I just do some shout outs to people who are engaging with us on our social platforms. I would love for you to be here on this platform. So when we're doing our live show, even though you might be on some of those other platforms, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and what else is out there? I think that's it. I think I said all. We also actually, guys, now have we have had a Twitch account, which we've not been doing much on, but we've started also streaming there for those. What you heard me talking about our special edition, and let me see, can I pull that up here? So our special edition that I did was I did a show where I actually cooked, right? Where I actually cooked a dish, a curry. It was curry chicken. All right, so we went through that entire process. So if you've not done that, so go ahead, look at that. Is that delicious? I mean, I'm gonna go cook some more of that right now. You can go cook some more of that right now. But that's what we did on our special editions, and we'll be doing more special editions. Now, the special editions are not necessarily curry, right? It's not just necessarily cooking, it's other things. And remember, our tagline is educating, empowering, encouraging, and I'm adding another word in there, right? It's going to be connecting, right? I think that's the word I'm going to use. I'm trying to find a F, right? E. So endocrinology, educating, empowering, encouraging. And if you can come up with a word that means connecting with an E, let me know, right? Drop it in the comments or send me a text, because I want to do that. Because part of what we do here, part of what I want to do is not just me talking to you, right? It's not just me giving you information, but you talking back to me and you guys talking to each other, right? So that's the community that I want, so that we are building each other up. That's what I want us to do here on this channel, in this space that we are creating. And notice I say we are creating, right? Because it's not just me. And all the things that you say, all the things that you comment about, all the things that you say and send back are things that we do as we grow the community. So definitely, if you're on all those other platforms, come on through and hang out with us. This is going to be great. This is going to be amazing for the live show. I want you here, definitely. And as we do some more of those special editions, right? So those are going to be going into some special places, and you want to be around to be able to take advantage of that. All right. So did I beat that to death? Yeah, there we go. I love that. But thank you for all of you who for all of you who came through that we gave the shout out at, we really appreciate you having some time and spending that with us. So heart disease. And last week on the show, we talked about heart disease, what it is, what it does to the body. And in particular, we talked about atherosclerosis, right? So remember, atherosclerosis is the process where we have plaques that build up in the vessels of the body. And as a result of that, we get places where blood no longer flows. And when blood doesn't flow, then we get death of tissues and cells that are beyond the point where the blood is flowing. So when there's a clog, when there's a block, the blood that's downstream of that blood, or not blood, the tissue that's downstream of that, the tissue dies, right? Atherosclerosis. So when we talk about atherosclerosis, there are two groups that almost seem like they're always at odds with each other. And those groups are the ones that we're going to talk about, not necessarily the groups, but we're going to talk about what their issue is and what their thoughts are. And so we're talking about cholesterol and carbohydrates. Cholesterol and carbohydrates, what do you need to know? So hamburgers and fries, right? What a perfect example of cholesterol, right? Hamburgers and fries. And the idea behind hamburgers and fries, first of all, it tastes good. Okay. Now I'm going to say that I'm going to raise my hand. Yes, right. As the endocrinologist, as the one on this show, as the one that's talking to you, I like hamburgers and fries. Okay. Well, let's say that. And I love bread. Hamburgers and fries, and I love bread. And those are two of the perfect examples of representing the two groups of thoughts and two groups of ideas, right? So traditionally, we've all talked about whether the problems that we're seeing in our society in terms of health, and we've talked about chronic disease, are those things related to fats or carbs? We know that a lot of it has to do with lifestyle. And when we talk about lifestyle, we're talking about the way we eat. We're talking about exercise. We're talking about rest and managing stress and drinking water and all those things, right? But two of the big things that we talk about when we talk about the lifestyle is we talk about food and we talk about exercise. In this segment, we're going to be talking about food, and in particular, talking about fats and carbs. So if you think about how the body works, and what needs to happen in the body, the body takes food, it digests it, and it converts it to energy. That's basically what happens. And our body is in the process of staying alive. That is the function for everything that our body does. It is with the intention of keeping us alive. And how does it keep us alive? It keeps us alive by making sure that we have enough energy. Let me say it again. It keeps us alive by making sure that we have enough energy. And we need energy for all sorts of things. We need energy to grow. We need energy for our hair to grow. We need energy to breathe. We need energy to think. We need energy to move. We need energy to fight off infection. So everything in our system needs energy. And so when we're talking about the processes that the body goes through, everything is with the intention of keeping us alive. So that's the first premise. Whatever the body does is with the intention of keeping us alive. And even when there are things in the body that go wrong, I want you to hear this clearly. When there are things in the body that go wrong, when disease processes happen, most of it is because the body is doing something to maintain life. And as a result of the process of maintaining life, something happens that shouldn't have happened. Like, your toe should not have become gangrenous, meaning that it got infected, right? But the body, in order to fix or keep safe the rest of the system, decided, hey, something happened to my toe. I got an infection. Now I've sent all the cells down there that are going to go and they're going to ward off. They're going to wall off. They're going to fight the infection. When those cells began doing that, they realized, hey, this thing is bigger than we thought. So I don't want this to go into the rest of the body. So I'm going to just make the toe die. Because I'd much rather lose the toe than to lose the rest of the system. I hope you're following that. So that's how disease processes happen. When we're fighting infection, when we're fighting bacterial, viruses, when something goes wrong in our GI tract, when we have cancers, the cancer is a process that's going on because something is happening in the body and the body's fighting that. I mean, there are times when, disease processes, you'll see where the virus or the bacteria takes over the host, takes over the processes of the body itself, and then forces the body to do things. But that's the idea. All right. So what we're doing is we are trying to take food, we're trying to digest it, and we're converting that to energy. That is the function of the body. And when we do that, food comes in several forms, right? We got proteins, we got fats, we got carbs. I always liken this to when you go to the gas station, when you're putting gas in your car, we come in those 3 different flavors, right? The 87, 89, 93 octane, right? So those are the different types. Same thing here. The body has 3 main sources of food, 3 main sources of energy, and those are going to be taken in and they're going to be digested and they're going to be what we use for energy. And there is an interesting process that happens. So proteins get broken down to amino acids. Fats get broken down into fatty acids and glycerol. And carbohydrates get broken down into, ultimately, glucose is the main thing that goes there. There's some, and this is a big overview, right? So we're not going into all of the details of amino acid metabolism or fatty acid metabolism. We'll talk a little bit more about those because that's our conversation tonight. Or glucose. We're not going into the Krebs cycle and glycolysis and so forth. You'll hear us mention some of those words. So ultimately, when we break the food down, when it's digested and it's broken down, that food has to go somewhere. And the main thing that helps us process food is insulin, y'all. Insulin. Now, everybody thinks that diabetes is a sugar problem, or I shouldn't say everybody thinks, but a lot of people think that diabetes is a sugar problem. Diabetes is not a sugar problem. Diabetes is an insulin issue. It's an insulin problem. But insulin doesn't just help to regulate your blood sugar. Insulin also helps to regulate other substrates, other things that are coming into the system that are digested. And we're going to talk about 2 of those, right? The fats and the carbs. Fats and carbs, because that's our conversation. So what happens in the body? When the food is broken down, when we have finished eating, we just ate, that's called the fed state. You throw down the, macaroni and cheese or hamburger or that steak that you ate or myriads of things, that juice that you just drank, the milkshake that you just drank, anything that's coming in has to be broken down. It breaks down into mostly these three components, understanding that there are other smaller molecules that come in. These are vitamins and minerals and so forth, right? They're there, but we're not talking about those tonight. And because we're in the fed state, when we're in the fed state, that means that there's a lot of substrate, there's a lot of stuff coming into the body, and we've got to do something with it. And the guy that decides what to do with it is insulin. And when insulin sees food coming in, not just sugar, by the way, when insulin sees food coming, sugar and fats, the insulin level goes up. And the insulin begins utilizing, right, what we need right now. So right now, I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you and I'm not eating. I didn't have anything since lunch. All right, so I'm starting to feel a little hungry, but that's okay. So right now, I'm sitting here. So let's assume that I decided that I'm going to eat, okay? And I started eating something. The body's going to decide what to do with the energy that's coming from what I just ate. So I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you. You see my hands are going, right? I'm a hand talker. That's okay. My brain is moving as I'm thinking about what I'm saying to you. My mouth is going. My heart is beating. My lungs are inhaling and exhaling, right? And right now, believe it or not, if you came right here, I'm expending a lot of energy as we're talking. I am. And so I need energy to replenish what I'm putting out right now. So if I'm eating, the body takes a part of what I eat and it sends it directly to supply energy for what I need right now. So when you're sitting at the computer, when you're laying in the bed, you need energy and the body supplies that. And the first place that that supply comes from is the glucose that came from the food that you ate. So the glucose gets broken down. And an interesting thing about glucose, as soon as you put some things in your mouth that have sugar in it, the body, the enzymes in your mouth start to break those down. And if you've eaten more than the body is able to use right now, guess what it has to do with it? It can't send it to energy. It sends it to a storage process. It sends it to a storage process. And in particular, it sends it to the liver. Okay, so that's what happens to the carbohydrates. They get broken down to glucose, and the body uses it for energy right now. And then anything that's above that, then the body sends it off to storage. Now, when we eat fats have to take a different process because there really aren't any enzymes in our mouth that will break down fat. So the fat has to go down the esophagus, into the stomach, and then it starts making its way through some of the intestinal walls. But it has to be what's called emulsified. And for emulsification, let me use an example. I'm old enough, and some of you may be old enough to remember there was this commercial. I think it was a Dawn commercial. And there was a sink full of water, and there was this film of grease on top of it. And somebody in the commercial, they dropped a drop of Dawn into it, and you saw the grease just kind of split apart. And you can think about that yourself. If you've washed dishes, right? What do? You get the water, and if there's something greasy in there, you put the dishwashing liquid in it, and you're hoping that the dishwashing liquid breaks up the grease so you can take it off. That's called emulsification. It breaks it up into smaller groups, smaller particles, so that all the grease doesn't just stick together. And the same thing happens when we eat a fatty food, right? It goes into our system. The gallbladder, right, releases bile, right? And the bile serves kind of like the dishwashing liquid, and it helps to break the fat down into something we call chylomicrons. And you don't have to remember that name. But those things, it basically packages it up and it sends it into the blood. And then in the blood, right, and with the help of some other things we'll talk about here in a minute, it gets reformed. So what it gets formed into is something called triglycerides. So triglycerides. And we'll see, I think I have a diagram of that here coming up in a little bit. Now, that process takes longer, right? So when you eat something fatty, it doesn't just go and automatically you get energy, right? That has to be processed, broken down, has to get through the intestinal walls, and has to go into the blood. And that's when we get the energy. Okay, and I'm going through this process with you because I want you to understand two separate things that are going on. We got the fat and we got the carbohydrates. And for the most part, the fats don't get used until we've used up all of the glucose. Because the fats, they get packaged and they get sent off for storage. And there are some other minor things that they do as well, right? So they get sent off. Okay? Now, many of you have gotten cholesterol levels checked. And when we talk about cholesterol is the word that everybody uses, but they're actually called lipids. Lipids. All right. So we talk about, and if you get your cholesterol labs done, you get a total cholesterol, you get a triglyceride, you get an HDL, you get an LDL, and in some places you'll get something called a VLDL and some other smaller ones. And when you talk to your doctor will say, hey, your cholesterol is high. We need to do something about it. And they give different names, right? So LDL, VLDL, and so forth. So let's walk through those a little bit. So when these triglycerides come into the body, they've got to go somewhere. And they get packaged and they get sent off, right? So let me see. I'm going to pop through here. They get packaged into, you can think it basically like a ball with three tails on it, a ball with three tails. And they're kind of moving through the system, and they end up at a particular location, and that location can be muscle, it can be, see if I'm gonna pop through here for a minute, guys. Right. So it can end up at muscle, it can end up at the liver, or it could end up at fat cells, or even the pancreas. So these triglycerides. So remember, this stuff that's coming in has to be stored somewhere. And this is where it's going to be stored. And this is what's going to end up causing the problem. Notice what is causing the problem is the triglycerides, because that's what it was converted to. Okay? Let's just pop back up here. So triglycerides, what it was converted to. So if we are able to convert the energy and we're able to use it, then there's not a problem. Let me say it again. If you are able to use everything that you put in your mouth, then there's not a problem. But if there's excess, then it gets stored. Okay, let's pop up back over and let's talk a little bit about glucose. So what happens to glucose, your sugar, when you eat it? If there's excess, it goes to the liver. What do you think the liver does with it? That's right, the liver converts it to triglycerides. And so triglycerides, now the storage form, is the main thing that's going into your blood to go into the different parts of the body to be stored. Now, most of us never talk about triglycerides. As a matter of fact, when you get your blood work, when you look at your blood results, triglycerides is not really a big part of the conversation, unless they're high, right? You know, we've seen people who have triglycerides of, I think I saw a guy once that had triglycerides of like 7,000. I think he had. Right. So then, we talk about triglycerides. But in the office, typically you come in, you get your lab work, triglycerides are, 150, 160, 170. Nobody really talks about that. He's like, hey, your total cholesterol is 250. We need to do something about that. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about bad cholesterol. So bad cholesterol is the one that everybody's worried about. And bad cholesterol is what happens when the triglycerides, right? Bad cholesterol are kind of a representation of what's going on with triglycerides. So let's talk a little bit about cholesterol, and let's talk about bad cholesterol, if you will, and what that means. So bad cholesterol comes in two flavors. One has really no problem in the body. It doesn't cause anything. And the other one is what causes a problem. So you could think of these two triglycerides. Hey, good evening, Florence. What's up, yo? Thanks for stopping through. Woo-hoo. Hey, bye. So Florence is coming through. Hey, Florence, we gave you a shout out earlier. Thanks for coming back on. All right. All right. So when we think about cholesterol, I want you to think about cholesterol in two, or bad cholesterol. So bad cholesterol is a package. Think about having a package, right? Somebody sent you a package, and in the box called LDL, bad cholesterol, there are two things in there, right? Like they sent you a birthday gift, and in the box, you look at two different things. And this is going to be a silly gift that they sent you, but that's what they sent you. They sent you a box, and in the box there is a tennis ball and there's a golf ball. A tennis ball and the golf ball. The box is called bad cholesterol, and within the box we got these two different types of bad cholesterol. Make sense? All right, good. So the tennis ball, if you think about a tennis ball, the tennis ball is kind of fluffy, right? Right? And it bounces and so forth. That's the tennis ball. And this is called fluffy puffy. Fluffy puffy. Fluffy puffy tennis ball. And if this is one of the cholesterols that's going through your body, you can imagine that it's just light, right? And so wherever the blood wants it to go, it goes, and it's floating, and the blood could send it wherever it needs to go, right? It's called fluffy puffy tennis ball. That's one of the cholesterols that's part of the bad cholesterol. But remember, in the box, we have another type of cholesterol, and this is like a golf ball. And if you think about a golf ball is hard. All right. Now, if you hit it, it does bounce, but it's not fluffy puffy. Right. It's not fluffy puffy. And the golf ball, if it's going through the blood, it's heavier than the tennis ball. And so when the blood is trying to get it to go where it wants to go, the golf ball is a little bit more resistant. And in fact, as it's flowing through the blood, the golf ball may fall, right? It may settle to the bottom because it's heavy. And when it settles to the bottom, it may hit the side of the vessel. It may hit the side of the artery, whatever vessel is flowing through, and it may cause some damage because it's hard, it's dense, and it causes a little nick in the wall. The fluffy puffy one doesn't do anything. It's just floating, minding its own business. But this guy, as it's floating through, it falls. It doesn't go where the blood wants it to go. It's heavy. So when we think about bad cholesterol, there are two components to it. There's the good one and there's the bad one. But when we measure them together. And there's some ways of measuring them separately, but that's the idea. So if you have fluffy puffy bad cholesterol, you're actually pretty good. But if you have dense, small LDL, bad cholesterol, then it causes a problem. Make sense so far? All right. Okay. So back to our idea of cholesterol and lipids. So lipids come in, we eat them, they get broken down, they go into the liver packages it, and if we don't need it, or if we don't need it, the energy right now, it goes to storage locations. Now, the more carbs you eat above what you need for energy, those excess carbs have to go to the liver, and the liver turns them into what? The same thing, triglycerides, the storage form. So really, if we're talking about heart disease and if we're talking about cholesterol, the one we should be paying attention to is the triglyceride. Because that's the thing that's going to cause the damage. That's the thing that's going out to cause issues for us. Okay, so that's triglyceride. So the storage form is triglyceride. The bad cholesterol that everybody talks about is this thing we just talked about, the fluffy, puffy, and dense cholesterol. So let's talk about one more. And this is the good cholesterol that everybody mentioned. So good cholesterol, and I may describe good cholesterol kind of like a rotor-rooter. All right. So as the bad cholesterol is going through the system, it's getting stuck at different places. And the good cholesterol is kind of a rotor-rooter, and it's just going through the vessels and it's chewing up all the bad cholesterol, and it's just picking them out, right? So having high HDL or good cholesterol is what we want. So high, right? So we're picking them all up, and it's cleaning up the system. That's the idea between those three. So triglycerides is the storage form. The bad cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, is ultimately what triglycerides are going to essentially turn into. But we have two kinds in there, the fluffy puffy and the small dense ones. And then we have the rotor-rooter that's cleaning the system up. That's why HDL is called the good cholesterol, because it basically picks up what's left. Yes? All right. Now, with that as a backdrop, unless, well, let me say it a little differently. Traditionally, carbohydrates were thought to be the bad guys. Like, oh, don't eat carbs, cut back on the carbs, don't eat carbs, right? So everybody's on a low carb diet. And then we switched and we started talking about, oh, cholesterol is bad. And then we've kind of waffled, right? And so now nobody knows what is the bad thing. But if you listen to the description that we just gave, they both cause damage. They both are causing storage of fat cells. But we tend, as humans, as a society, to eat a lot more of what? Carbohydrates. So let me say that again. And I'm going to say this, and there are people going to get up in arms. So carbohydrates are bad when there's too much. Because what happens to them is the storage form of carbohydrates, which is the triglycerides. They cause the problem. So when we think about, when we think about our normal process, so we eat food, it gets broken down. Insulin is the regulator. Either we're going to get energy, or if we don't have to use it, then it goes into our storage form. Right? So think of insulin as our storage process. So normal process is what happens there. But if something goes wrong in our insulin resistance, then the insulin can't get the energy into the cell. And so what does it do to it? It sends it to storage. That's why insulin resistance is so bad, because all of that energy now doesn't get used, but it gets sent to storage. And we know that when it gets sent to storage, it gets turned into triglycerides. And we said the triglycerides are a big issue for heart disease and so forth. So remember that insulin is the key that opens the door. But not just does it open the door to help regulate glucose, but it also helps to regulate not just carbohydrates, but energy in terms of fats and glycerol and so forth. Okay. So when your body has more glucose than it needs for energy, and it has reached its capacity for glycogen, right, which is the storage form for sugar, the increase, that's the immediate storage, by the way, so not long term. This is like, I'm going to use this tomorrow or today. The increased insulin prompts the liver to convert glucose into triglycerides, which are then transported to fat cells and to other cells, right? That should say it's transported to other cells. So what are the consequences of excess fat store? Now, we all talk about obesity, like obesity is the thing, but there are different types of obesity. You probably know someone who's much, much larger than you that doesn't have any heart issues, no diabetes, no high cholesterol. Everything is great. So it's not just an obesity issue. So that person is metabolically healthy. And then you know people who are slim, they're muscular, they exercise. And if you look at their cholesterol is out the roof. And when I say cholesterol, I'm talking about the ones that we just described, right? It's out the roof. So it's not always just, okay, what that person looks like. We've got to look at their metabolic milieu, if you will, the metabolic makeup. Because there are some familiar things that go on. There are some lifestyle things that go on and on and on and on. So we got to make sure we look at that. So when we look at someone who is obese, when we look at somebody who's obese, the fat that we are concerned about, the adipose tissues that we're concerned about, are the adipose tissues around the midsection. Because the tissue that's up here and all that, there's not that we want that, but that's not the one that's going to be causing the problems for our heart. In fact, there's fat that can surround the liver, which we don't want, but it is the fat that's in the liver, inside the liver itself, that causes the problem. Because if the liver can't process all the things that we just talked about, if the liver can't respond to insulin, then it can't shuttle all those different components we just talked about to the right places. And ultimately, if it can't do that, then we end up with our disease processes. So things like polycystic ovarian syndrome, things like diabetes, because we are now insulin resistant, things like fatty liver, right, which is what I'm describing, things like obesity and heart disease and strokes, and irregular menstrual cycles, and low testosterone, and decreased mentation, so thought process. And we can go on and on and on and on and on. Increased insulin resistance, as a result of triglycerides, right? So this whole process is causing that, has been associated with increased risk of cancers even. So when we talk about carbohydrates and fats, the question ultimately that we have is, what do we do about that? What do we do about that? I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. Let's see, Florence. Florence says, thanks, Doc. Says, my dad, I'm thinking that's what it means. Oh, so she said, my bad cholesterol is really high. My bad cholesterol is really high. So here's an interesting idea, right? For Florence and for all of you who are out there looking. When we look at the bad cholesterol, the question is, remember the box with the bad cholesterol? Which cholesterol do you have? The fluffy, puffy one or the dense, small one? Because if you have the fluffy, puffy one, even if your cholesterol is really high, it doesn't cause any heart disease. Doesn't cause any heart disease. And so we're going to talk here in a minute about a way that you can kind of look and see what your risk can be for your cholesterol. Awesome. All right. So if you're out there, just go ahead and give us a thumbs up for this video. If you have high cholesterol, if you know someone who has high cholesterol, put yes in the comments. If you have high cholesterol or know somebody who has high cholesterol, put yes in the comment. And if you're out there watching, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Share this video with somebody that you may know that has that may need it, right? So just the concept, the description, the idea, the conversation of cholesterol is one, even if you don't struggle with cholesterol, is for you to know, so that when you're listening and you're hearing people talk about different things, then you know what they're talking about. Okay, so when we talk about cholesterol and fat, there's a term that you'll hear people talk about. They'll say lipoprotein, right? That's that LDL, right? Large, dense lipoprotein, right? So high dense lipoprotein, right? HDL, VLDL, low dense. I said large dense. So LDL, low dense lipoprotein, HDL, high dense lipoprotein. Very low dense, or VLDL, very low dense lipoprotein. So that's those phrases that you'll hear when they're talking about cholesterol and talking about fats. Okay. All right. And once again, if you've not done so, go back and take a look at some of the information that we have on the site, on our YouTube channel, so that you will know what's going on, what's happening there. Okay. And this is a great place for us to do our amazing question wheel. So let's go ahead and let's hop over there right now. All right. So remember, for our amazing question wheel, if you'd like your question to show up on the wheel, go ahead and drop those in our any of our social media platforms. Let's see. Let me pop that up. Let's get back to this other one. Right there. So right under my name, you'll see Dwayne Wood MD, and you can catch us on any of our social media platforms. We've got LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter. Let's see if I can pop that on the screen so you can see. There it is. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, and I've got to add the Twitch one on there as well. Okay, so just drop those there. And as I do this, we're going to create a video, a short from what we're doing tonight, and that will show up on those social media platforms. I want you to grab them and find them. And when you find them, put "I was there." Hashtag "I was there." Hashtag "I was there" is what we want you to do. Just like, if you remember, I did a shout out to Jeff because he did that for one of the videos that we saw. So let's go ahead and spin the question wheel, and let's see what we have for tonight. All right. Are there natural forms of thyroid hormone replacement? I forgot to say, and so I get 45 seconds to give the answer to this. So let's see. Let's get 45 seconds on the screen. Are there natural forms of thyroid hormone replacement? So I'm gonna answer this question, and then I'm gonna actually create a new question in my head, because as I saw this, I'm making one up. So I'm going to answer this question, and then I'm going to come back and give another 45 seconds to create another question. So here we go. So are there natural forms of thyroid hormone replacement? Are there natural forms of thyroid hormone replacement? Yes, there are. So there are things like Armour thyroid. There's Nature thyroid. And so these components, or these compounds, have both T3 and T4 in them. Our typical treatment just has T4. So yes, there are natural forms of thyroid hormone replacement. All right, so I think I got that one. All right. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask another question that just came up in my mind as I was looking at this. And the question is, can the thyroid affect cholesterol levels? Can the thyroid affect cholesterol levels? All right, so that's my next one. Can the thyroid affect cholesterol levels? The answer is definitely yes. So hypothyroidism can cause elevated cholesterol levels. And one of the things that we want to make sure as we're treating people who have high cholesterol, we want to make sure that we check their thyroid and replace their thyroid hormone prior to or in conjunction with treating their cholesterol. Because sometimes correcting the thyroid can correct the cholesterol level as well. All right. So so that was one that popped into my head as I was reading the question. All right. So back to what we were talking about. We're talking about, right, once again, we're talking about cholesterol and we're talking about carbohydrates, cholesterol and carbohydrates. So how do we then put these two things together, right? So because there's so much noise in the space. Everybody needs to understand that cholesterol, and when we talk about cholesterol, triglycerides are the things that cause damage. They're the storage form. That's where when you have not eaten and the body needs energy, it goes to the stores and it breaks the triglycerides that are there down into glycerol and free fatty acids. So glycerol and free fatty acids. That's what it breaks it down to. And those are what cause our problems. So So it breaks it down to glycerol and free fatty acid. And remember, it's in the stores, it's in the liver, it's in the fat cells, it's in the muscle. And triglycerides, that's what it looks like. Triglycerides are a component that is being created by the body. It has what's called a glycerol head, and there are 3 fatty acids that are attached to it, and that's the storage form. So when the body breaks it down, the glycerol, definitely we can make sugar out of that. And then the free fatty acids are floating around, and they can do all kinds of damage. They can muck up the system, if you will. That's a great medical word, right? Muck up the system. Right? And so remember that these are things that will cause the blockages that we see when, or contribute, if you will, to the blockages that we see when those plaques begin to build up. That's what we're seeing. So how do we then decide, or how do we go about treating high cholesterol, or what do we do with all this information? When the carb people and the fat people talk, sometimes it seems like they're at odds, because each side is very passionate about what they believe and what they do. Now, ultimately, the goal is to do what? Is to protect us. Ultimately, the goal is to stay alive. Ultimately, the body's goal is to keep us going. So as these two groups are talking, their ultimate goal is the same thing. What is the best way to help humans survive in this environment that we've created, this life, this modern life that we've created? And if I had to make a choice, it would be to decrease the amount of total carbs that I'm putting in. Now, I'm not talking about going 0 carbs. What I'm talking about is to make sure that when I'm eating carbs, I'm not eating carbs that are above what my body needs for energy. And for each person, that's different. So that's something you've got to figure out, you and your doctor. You've got to figure out, what level is that? How many carbs do I need? Now, there are some things that you can do to test this out, and you've got to do it with your doctor. One, you can go on a carb fast. And this is what happens when a lot of people do the ketone diet, right? They cut carbs down really, really low. But you can do a 0 carb diet. And there are some benefits to a zero carb diet. One, all the carbs that you eat retains water, right? So when you eat carbs, the body has to keep water in the system to help flush out those carbs, or help maintain the carbs, if you will. So when you stop eating carbs, guess what happens? The water goes away. And water is weight. So stop eating carbs and look at your weight and see what happens to your weight. So the weight should go down. You stop eating carbs, and because we're not retaining all the fluid goes away, and what else happens? Our blood pressure goes down. Right? Because all that fluid was causing pressure in the system. So if the fluid goes away, there goes the blood pressure as well. If you cut out carbs, what happens to the amount of insulin that your body makes? That should go down as well. Insulin is a growth factor. Insulin helps you maintain weight. Insulin makes it more difficult to lose weight. So once again, we're on the weight. If the insulin goes down, the body doesn't store as much, right? Because insulin is a storage factor. Because if you're not eating much carbs, the insulin has to go down. Now, I'm not saying, now go and just chomp down on lots of high cholesterol stuff, right? Because then your insulin is going to have to do something with that. So notice what's happening. Because we've cut out the carbs, gone to zero carbs, then we get to see all these different things. Now, I got to reiterate, make sure you are doing this with your physician, in conjunction with your physician. All right, so that's one thing. So cut back on the carbs. Because if we cut back on the carbs, then there's no excess. If there's no excess, then we don't have to go to the liver. If we don't have to go to the liver, so if you cut out carbs, guess what happens? The liver, the fat around the liver and in the liver goes down. And the visceral fat, the storage visceral fat, that goes down as well. And I'm going to talk to you here in a little bit of something that we can do together. So cut that out. And one of the biggest places that we sometimes miss is the balance between activity and energy and the food that we eat. I was talking to someone in the office today, I believe, and we were talking about the balance between that. If you eat a cookie, then people say, well, I ate the cookie. How do I manage the sugar that I just ate? And they say, oh, I went to exercise, right? Well, the question is, how much exercise did you do? Did you do a cookie's worth of exercise? Or not? Because if you don't do a cookie's worth of exercise, then part of that cookie is going where, right? You've heard that phrase, a minute on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. Because the excess goes somewhere. It has to go somewhere. So exercise is a great way to begin, because as you're eating food, if you're exercising, then the energy from the food has to go somewhere. It has to go to you, whatever the routine that you're doing. And as you do that, that helps as well. So carbohydrates and our cholesterol. And so here's a little simple trick that you can do when you get your blood work, right? And talk to your physician once again. Take your triglycerides and divide it by your LDL. Take your triglycerides divided by the LDL. And that should be 2 or less. that means that we're in a good place. If it's above that, then we've got some issues that we've got to work on. And this idea of cutting out carbs it doesn't have to be forever, right? It could be for a short time that you do that. Awesome. All right. Yeah. I love this. So we're so as I'm working, as we're building the channel, as I am thinking about what we do in the future. All right, this is a great activity for us to do together. Okay. So what I want to do, and we'll do it for a month. So starting in March, we're going to do a no carb challenge. Starting in March, we're going to do a no carb challenge. So I want you to pay attention. because you're going to see the link out there to sign up so that we can all do this together. All right. So no carb. And so we'll be talking to each other as we go through this process. So no carb challenge. So this is a perfect one for us to do because we all can use some improved health. And so we'll get to see what it does in our systems together. And then we'll come back and we'll talk more. Well, we'll talk in the group. But I'll have a link where you can sign up for that. Okay. All right. Well, guys, thank you, and gals, thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for liking. Thank you for being in this space. If you know someone who struggles with cholesterol, struggles with carbs, struggles with their levels, right? Send this video to them. Send this video to them. And as you guys are out there and you're thinking about, okay, how do I get healthier? Make sure that you go and check out some of the things that we have on our website. Dwayne Wood MD is where we are. And first of all, you can sign up and download our free eBook, Learn How Successful People Create the Life They Want. And that's 7 Keys to Success. 7 Keys to Success. You can find our blog, and our blog is growing. So make sure that you sign up there so that you can see those. We've got stuff about thyroid, obviously, because we did that last month, and heart disease, living with heart disease and diabetes, and then some things on general health. Right, so how to take care of all those. So make sure that you get over there. Scrolling down on the page, and you can actually go to any of your podcast viewers or podcast software, and you could find our podcast. It's Do You Know? Right now we've got our videos that have been transcribed, our videos the audio that's over there on our podcast channel. And there are lots of new things that we're going to be doing that are different from what we're having here on the main show. So make sure that you get over there and make sure you subscribe. If you know people in your circle who are not, they like to listen, this is a great place for them to also get the information that we're doing. They don't have YouTube, but we love you to come on YouTube, so make sure you do that. And then if you want to work with me personally, go ahead and connect with me there on the website. Sign up for coaching beyond the disease. Coaching beyond the disease is what we're calling it. And so make sure that you get over there. All right. So that's it for tonight, y'all. We are excited. I'm excited. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for being here with me. And keep an eye out and listen out to all the things that we're going to be doing on the channel. And if you've not seen our special edition, make sure you go back and do that. I enjoyed doing that. And we'll have more things like that coming through. All right. Thank you. Good night. And we will see you at the next visit. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Good night, everybody.